My name is Robert Christopher Wayne Weathers. I live at 3102 Central Hill Road, Edgar, Mississippi, 38841. I'm under attack by what appears to be Scientology. So from what I have experienced and observed, there's more space in the universe than humans can see. There are 11 dimensions. These extra dimensions reside within the particle itself. So inside of these particles in which we consist of lie 11 dimensions. We have biology in these extra dimensions. 11-dimensional biology. We utilize this biology to have an afterlife. So when we die, we live on, utilizing this extra dimensional biology. Scientology is the practice of utilizing this extra dimensional biology before we die. They remove it from themselves. They use technology and techniques to turn it into upper dimensional vehicle. So this biology, it presents itself in layers. As it grows out of our third into the next three dimensions, it creates a biology. And then it crosses the boundary into the next three dimensions and creates a layer on top of that biology. And it grows into the next three dimensions and it creates another layer, so on and so forth. These Scientologists like to remove most of it or part of it from themselves. Then they have an extra dimensional vehicle they can modify and turn into an extra dimensional biology they can modify and turn into an upper dimensional vehicle. So they like to cut themselves along the dimensional boundaries. They like to remove the layers from themselves. And they wind up with 3 or 4 biologies in the upper dimensions in which they can turn into uh, vehicles they can utilize. So these biologies can't function properly. They can't survive in this state. So they have to use organs and tissues from other humans and other species in an attempt to modify themselves and make themselves whole again. So they steal biology from humans, lizards, insects, and worms for transplant purposes. So they create a few types of aliens. There are alien forms. There are the greens, the grays, and the blue bloods. Then there are the lizard people. So they make lizard people out of their biology. They also make insectoids out of their biology, or bug people. And then there are the worm people. The Scientologists are creating the aliens. They are extra dimensional organisms that are remote controlled from Earth. Yes, these Scientologists get to utilize their extra dimensions before they die. Now, from what I have observed, the human genome produces an 11-dimensional organism with horns on our head. We are of the Anunnaki bloodline. The entire thing creates an Anunnaki, or Anunnaki of Anunnaki descent. That is what I have observed. Yes, I have seen them a lot. So upon death, we do something called raising or turning around. We actually grab all of these particles in which we are made of, we pull them into our core. We actually turn around. So the living are facing this way, out into the universe, towards the void. Dead people are facing the other way, towards the singularity. We actually turn ourselves around, inside, and we come out into the 11th dimension. Consider our third dimensions as a shell. It is a shell for something else, our inner dimension. And when we die, we leave this shell behind and we fly into outer space and live among the stars. That is the human afterlife experience. So these Scientologists, they are facing the wrong way. They don't get turned around. They are still facing towards the living. And there's an entanglement property between our third dimension and our inner dimension. So if you remove a part of your extra dimensional biology, no matter how far you take it from yourself, you're still in this biology. What happens from our perspective is as this body part leaves us, space time in between us and the removed biology shrinks. Because these body parts or this extra dimensional biology is the actual part of the particles in which we exist. You can't remove energy from the particle. The particle will be destroyed. The universe conforms to ensure this doesn't happen. And on top of this, these Scientologists, the biologies in which they create, they still have a hard time surviving. So they have to give themselves an artificial means of stimulation. So they artificially stimulate themselves with electricity to replace their biochemical electricity so they can function. So our dead people and our extra dimensions, they come with special abilities. We have very powerful eyesight. We can see in all dimensions, down to the molecular level. We can fly. We can go anywhere in the universe. We are invisible to the third dimensional um, organisms. In a healthy environment with a healthy biology, we can even do magic. We can move particles around, and we can see biologies on the molecular level. So they can see our nervous system functioning. They can see our brains lighting up and our nervous system lighting up. They can see particles flowing through our biology. They can see our fluids and blood flow and the particles in which we consume. And they can interact with our biology on a very intimate level. So they can see DNA strands, genetic material, and modify this genetic material. In ancient times, these abilities were utilized to help life on this planet develop and grow. I have a hypothesis that they even helped us turn into Anunnaki or create our Anunnaki form. It is the best form for surviving in outer space. You get a head covering and thick skin and special organs, extra dimensional organs, and the ability to fly and remove waste. And so these Scientologists, they are still among the living. And ever since the 50s and 60s, when people started practicing Scientology, it has created a conflict of interest never before seen on Earth. They are abusing these heavenly abilities and this technology that they use to try to control society and the population for personal gain. And I have to also mention that as whenever you remove this extra dimensional biology from yourself, and you leave the third dimension and you go towards the 11th dimension, away from uh, away from the living, you expand at a greater rate than you do on Earth. You actually lose your connection to space time, and you start to expand at a greater rate. So they become big compared to us, and they consider themselves God. Yes, the aliens are remote controlled organisms. Someone on Earth is driving aliens right now. It is the Scientology community, both the church and the free zone. So there's a free zone among the Scientology community, and that is the largest group of Scientologists. And these people are very criminal. It has become a criminal enterprise. So they are exploiting people in our society. If you have influence, power, authority, or some kind of employment position that they desire to control, they will force you to assimilate. So they either force you to assimilate and practice Scientology, or they will practice Scientology on you in an attempt to control your behavior. And if these two things don't work, they will make you a surrogate, which is the ability to drive you. They can drive other organisms. And then lastly, our deaf people and the Scientologists, they see time in a different way than our third dimension. So our third dimension see time as a linear event. We see the days passing one after another. Time is actually a simultaneous event. The past, the present, and the future happen at the same time. That means at this very moment, I'm being born, and they are interacting with me as I'm being born in this very moment. These people are very criminal. They do things like exploit people, they force assimilation, they kidnap people, they they steal biologies, so they steal organs and tissues from other humans and other organisms to practice their Scientology, either for transplant purposes or for surrogate making purposes. They see our body parts as a commodity, an object in which they can utilize for personal or monetary gain. They are stealing biologies from the public for both Scientology practices and in an attempt to control people. They do things like invade our privacy, invade our homes and businesses on their upper dimensions. And they use their upper dimensions as lookouts so they can break and enter into our homes to steal things or modify environments. They traffic humans, both for sexual purposes and for entertainment and for organ donation. Torture and rape is rampant among these people. They have torture and rape victims constantly, and they murder people. They're drowning a worm in my nose right now. So they are also utilizing bad organisms as a weapon, biological weapon. So they have several species of parasites, some of which are genetically engineered, that they are using on people as a weapon. They can even drive microbes and viruses, and they use these as weapons. They like to contaminate our food and water supply with parasites and contaminants.